right, let's get this started. So, Demetrius has, he's getting coffee right now. What you getting this morning, D? What you got drinking?
I got my Blanchard's, man.
Blanchard still? Me too.
So I have some Blanchard's left over just from the Blanchard's blend.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, we got one of the big old, 2.5 pound bags to try to last us a little while here. But looking forward to trying some new stuff soon. And people are probably getting annoyed with us saying that, but it'll come soon.
Yeah, man. They need to give us the recommendations.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Love to hear what other people are drinking. Here's a good question for you. If you had to choose, would you rather drink crappy coffee or no coffee? And crappy coffee, I mean hotel lobby coffee or just something like that.
I'd probably drink crappy coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know, the taste is not the seller for me. It's great when I do get really good tasting coffee, but I think it's just a mental thing. Even if it was just a cup of crap, I'd be like, yes.
Yep.
I have my life in this cup. It's a little shitty right now, but it's good. It's gonna get me through.
I've been guilty of that, man. The hotel coffee, I'll grab it before flights or anything, and I'll just be like, I just need a little bit. I just need the little bit of ritual, the little bit of taste that's reminds me of coffee, and the little bit of kickstart, and that's what I like about it. However, when I'm left to my own devices, I'm always picking nice coffee, always, every time.
Oh, for sure. I've met somebody actually who will never stray away from that. He even has his own personal coffee kit when he travels to make sure that he can have a good cup of coffee wherever he goes.
Oh man, that's serious.
Yeah, he's serious.
That's pretty funny. My parents do the same thing. They bring their own coffee machines wherever they travel, and it's just to kids' houses or whatever. But they'll have their own little setups, and they don't use the same one. They use separate ones because they use different coffees.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. It's serious over there.
Man.
In the Anderson
I'm
household.
not serious enough then. Don't ask me about coffee then. We need to change our podcast title then. We don't know crap about coffee.
You'll get there, man. You got to just start developing it, and then it comes.
Yeah, I'm going to have a $6,000 machine in here next.
Yeah, that'd be sick. All right, today, so we're going to talk a little bit different of a style of a podcast today. So we're going to do a kind of a 5x5, which is a little bit of an homage to a training program, the Texas method, which is a good way to build strength. You do 5 sets of 5 reps, something kind of heavy. But we're going to do the similar format of 5 topics and 5 kind of quick facts about them. And I apologize in advance because some of mine are a little bit less facty and they're a little bit more just education based. So I'm just going to throw that out there at the beginning. All right, so our 5 big topics are going to be movement, nutrition, hydration, sleep, and mindset as kind of our big 5 factors of fitness. And Dee, do you have any preference on where we start?
We can start right from the top of that list there.
All right, sweet. So that starts us with movement, and my fact number 1 is strength does not equal size, and size does not equal strength. And I thought this one was a good thing to bring up because people typically think of big people as strong and people who are smaller as not as strong. And it's not always the case because it's more of a method of training, okay? And people come to us worried about getting big and bulky all the time, and that's, first off, that is very hard to do, and for most people that's not super achievable in the short term. It's a very long-term process to do that. But and how that relates to size and strength is strength you're really hitting more from a skill standpoint. So you're training things to in your body to be neuromuscular. So for example, somebody who has X amount of muscle, when they use that muscle in any given pattern, their brain's going to recruit somewhere between 20 and 40% of that muscle when they first start training. And then as you get trained and you get stronger, you develop that skill, it starts to recruit more like 70% of that muscle, 80% of that muscle. So really, it's a development of neuromuscular efficiency that we call strength. And then there's also the muscular component to it, where if you develop the muscle, suddenly you have more like tensile strength in the muscle, and so you can actually lift heavier weights. So they both go hand in hand, but it's not as absolute as people think it is. And people typically think, oh, if I lift heavy weights, I'm going to get big and bulky. No, not necessarily. You're going to develop strength as a skill, which is a good way to get bigger and bulkier, but it's not necessarily the case, and it especially depends on your nutrition.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, man. So number one, strength does not equal size, and size does not equal strength. Number two, mobility and flexibility. Now, they're two different things, and they're often used interchangeably. I like to talk about this one because it's a kind of a passion of mine. Mobility is, but flexibility is really the passive range of motion in the body. So if you can, your body can be moved through a range of motion. So if somebody can lift your arm overhead to a certain range, versus mobility, where you can actually move your joint through that range of motion. So I might have good hamstring flexibility, but I might have poor hamstring mobility, depending on how well it moves through the range of motion. And typically, flexibility, in my experience, is typically can lead to injury, and mobility typically leads to better joint health and joint feeling, because you have more control and more strength through that range of motion. I think people get that really confused a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even early on, I would think before I even started to really dive into like the understanding of mobility versus flexibility, I was confused. I would definitely get the two interchanged a lot.
For sure. Oh, and we could do a whole other podcast on all the things that we used to teach or think, and then what we've come to now. And that should always be changing, and it's changed a lot for me, and I'm sure it's changed a lot for you too. But
for sure.
Yeah, that's one I've come to really understand a lot, and I think that distinction is important, and it's important for people to actually focus on mobility. But yeah.
Agree, 100%.
All right, number 3, pain inhibits muscle contraction. And I'm going to talk about pain for this one and the next one, but pain and your pain pathway and your muscle pathway to your brain, they share the same neurological pathway. And so if you're in pain somewhere near your joint or your muscle or something in that area, the pain signal and the muscle contraction signal are sharing the same pathway. So one has to lose, one has to win out. All right. And if pain is strong, then the muscle contraction is going to be weak. And that also puts you at risk for injury. All right. And so if you're often training with injuries or in pain, then you are going to be at risk of being injured. And that takes me to my next point of no pain, no gain.
I lost you. My
least favorite saying in fitness. And that's because it's just highly misunderstood. People take their workouts very seriously, and they think that they need to push and be in pain, and if they're in pain, it's a sign of weakness, and they need to get over that, and whatever, they need to push through that. But that's not the case at all. Being in pain is not...
Lost connection.
That's all good, man. I just went on without you, man. We're good.
Good stuff.
But talking about, switched on to no pain, no gain as my 4th point here, and how much I dislike that saying. And just basically, if you're training in pain, you're not doing something right, and that pain is not going to lead to gain. Okay, so that's not a good scenario. So typically what people are referring to when they say no pain, no gain is just that discomfort of pushing, like that little bit of maybe muscle burn, or just, you're breathing hard or you're struggling just a little bit, and it's not referring to like, I have a twinge, or like, hey, that doesn't feel right, but I'm going to push through it anyway. It's not those types of pains. It's more just the discomfort of your body's in like a physically uncomfortable position due to the stress you're putting on it, not because it's bad for you. All right. And so that's a big distinction I think a lot of people need to make. And that's why, as coaches, we often will get feedback from people like, how does that feel? Like, are you feeling anything here or there? We're kind of nitpicking and trying to figure out if there's anything that's not good or painful for that person.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my least favorite sayings.
Oh man, yeah, that saying. We have to come up with something new for that, man, because geez, it's horrible.
Yeah, yeah.
It's horrible saying.
Maybe you guys could give us some ideas in the comments, like no pain, no gain. Give us some alternatives to that.
Yeah, for sure.
We got some creative people, maybe not us, but they're creative, right? All right, my fifth point is just about cardio versus weights, or which one to use. If you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to get some fat loss going, which one do you want to lose? Which one do you want to use? So it's not really it's not really or. It's kind of an and answer, and I think that there's no real right answer. It's really just about what's right for you. I think that it's important for people to understand that cardio, especially when it's done intensely, like interval training, it can be very intense and taxing, and that can also make you hungrier. It can burn more calories, but it can also make you hungrier, and so it can make eating like a little bit less easy to manipulate. And then low intensity, so things like walking or just like general baseline aerobic stuff, is not going to have quite the same intense effect on you. So that's going to be a little more. First off, it's going to be more sustainable, and it's not going to alter your hunger quite as much. Weights, though, I think are like vastly important for this because they promote the storage of muscle mass. So they keep your muscle mass on while you're losing fat or you're losing weight, assuming you're in a calorie deficit. But the combination of the two is huge, and I think it's just positive from a movement perspective, from moving your body, getting your body healthier. But it's also huge because it's mental, and so you're trying to figure out which ones work for you and which ones are sustainable for you. Some people love HIIT cardio, like some people love it. Go for it. Get some weights, do some HIIT, make sure you're recovering. But if you don't, you can find another way to do it. You do not have to do HIIT cardio. That's okay.
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I think those are great points too, man, that you broke down there for movement. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, those were awesome. And we could, I would dive right into where another aspect that we spoke of in terms of health is sleep. Go right into sleep here. And this is like the opposite of movement because you're not moving.
It's very much.
You shouldn't be moving as much during your sleep. But yeah, we'll talk about that. And with mine, I will say as well, like you noted in the beginning, I'm not as facty as much as just like educational points. Keep it quick and keep it flowing. But sleep. So the first part I started on sleep is its impact on your brain function and how it leads to healthy brain function. So, making sure that the sleep can affect anything from your decision-making skills, your memory, how your attention, how you're able to pay attention, how you're able to learn, all this stuff here is affected by the quality of sleep that you get, which I'll kind of dive into a little bit later too, and like how much sleep you're getting as well. But I think it's super important that people are focusing on that aspect because we usually think of just sleep as just a tool to get us from one day to the next, and we're not really thinking about the actual importance of it and what it's actually doing to our body and how we're showing up day to day. Because during sleep you're forming new pathways that in your brain that help you with, again, learning, remembering information, which is something you're going to be doing daily, whether you're still working or not. It's going to be a very important function of your brain. And not getting enough sleep and being deficient in sleep can affect all that stuff. You start having trouble making those decisions, or paying attention, in to the point where it can even lead to more emotional stuff as well. So then, my second note here, from that healthy brain function, it goes to your emotional well-being. Usually we'll see the effects of sleep deprivation in mood swings or other stressful things like depression, anxiety, stress itself as well. So being that sleep is so important just for your brain function, is also going to lead over to the emotional side as well. And I think with that, being that it can increase stress, that can lead to it inhibiting, the release of certain hormones that help you with happiness, like, dopamine and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So is that something you've noticed as well, you would say, like emotional well-being, the healthy brain function?
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. Like, focusing on sleep is key. Most people just take it for granted. You get to the end of the day, you're tired, you go to sleep. Maybe you push it back here and there, or quite often. I'm tired today, like whatever. But if you actually focus on it, you can see amazing dramatic changes in all those things that you were mentioning: mental health, mood, energy, happiness, all this stuff. If you like set yourself a schedule and you make sure you're trying to get as much sleep as you can, or at least the appropriate amount for your body. And I think that's different for everybody. I don't know if you have that number in there, but we can talk about that too. Definitely
do. So actually I'll jump right into that one and then I'll go back. So I was good. Well, no. So talked about the brain health, your emotional health, and then I want to talk about physical health. Mm-hmm. I put in the numbers a little bit later because I want you to remember the numbers. I feel like this is the last thing I say is going to be more relevant in your brain. But with the physical health aspect of it, I mean, sleep itself is restorative. That's the way I look at sleep, is like it's recovery from just the day-to-day stuff. And and that's based in fact as well with science. I mean, during sleep, your body is healing itself, it's repairing, blood vessels, your heart. It's helping in, also repairing, muscle tissue, especially, again, like we talked about strength and how to perform that, to really get the most from that, your workout, strength, muscle building, all that stuff is going to be during sleep when your body is repairing itself. If you're not allowing that to happen, then you're going to really slow down and impact what you're doing outside of sleep.
Big time.
Huge time. So, and then again, on the point of like regulating hormones and stuff like that, especially when it comes to the hormones of, hunger, like ghrelin and leptin, if you're not getting that quality sleep or enough balanced sleep, you're not gonna be able to balance those hormones as well. And you might find yourself a little bit hungrier throughout the day because of, you're not having enough sleep, not getting enough sleep in, and how that affects that. And even to the point of like, they talk about sleep and its increased risk of like obesity and stuff like that. And it kind of goes back to that, like the function of the hormones, because not only is it, you're looking at your hunger hormones, you're looking at the insulin as well, which controls like your blood sugar levels, which can lead to lower than normal blood sugar levels and to diabetes, risk of diabetes. So to think of all those things, like, wow, like, your blood pressure, your recovery, your obesity, all these hormones that are being regulated during your sleep, I mean, that should itself tell you like how important getting quality sleep is and enough for your life.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like a giant reset button, restore and reset button for your body and your mind. And we've seen so many people take their training so seriously and their sleep so not seriously. And if you could, like, if I could have people change like one thing in their life to get just much better results from just whatever they're doing right now, it would be to address sleep and to make sure you're getting some deep sleep and enough hours of sleep, restorative sleep.
Restorative sleep, for sure. And so then I'll dive into that next there. And so this is actually, I found a chart. It was on the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. They went through the different recommendations for sleep. We've all heard about like 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and that's also what they recommend for adults. But to dive a little bit deeper in that, I mean, it can be from anywhere from 7 up to like 14 hours of sleep, and that's the younger you are, the more sleep typically that would be. So for those who are listening who have kids, you're looking at your children up to their preteen years, they're going to be getting about anywhere from 9 to 14 hours of sleep. Teenagers, the 8 to 10 hours range, and adults again in that 7 to 8, you can even say 9-hour range there. And that's going to be that time of restorative sleep like we're talking about. And you can't make up that time. So when you start to like lose those hours of sleep, it's going to start to affect everything that we're talking about. The physical, the mental, the emotional side of things, the less sleep that you get. A lot of people feel like they can make up the sleep with naps and stuff like that, but you can't get to that deep sleep that you were speaking of. So, that deep sleep, that is about, an hour and a half to almost 2 hours of sleep there, where it occurs in the later stages of the sleep process. And that's when your body gets into that super low heart rate, respiration, like your body's really not doing anything. And our bodies are always functioning, they're always doing something, digesting, the metabolism is your every body function. And at that point in time, it's almost down to a zero. So that's when all this stuff has the ability to really be worked on and happen. But that won't happen until later in your sleep. So if you're tossing and turning, if you're waking up every few hours, if you're only sleeping, 4 to maybe even 6 hours, you're probably not even hitting that range yet to get that deep sleep.
Yeah, or you're cutting it off early. That was
more so cutting it off early.
That was the craziest thing for me. When I learned that, when you're in deep sleep, you're essentially dead to the world. Your body's not moving, your brain's not really doing much.
Yeah.
And you are your heart rate's really low and your breathing's really low. And I'm that's as close to dead as we get. And we do it every single night.
It's insane. It's scary.
That's crazy.
It's scary, crazy, but
cool.
Also cool. Yeah. It's really, really cool. And so the importance there is just to really try to make the time for sleep. As you're making time for everything else in your life, and we tell our clients to, make the time and schedule in their exercising, the workout, you really need to make the time for sleep. And we're just talking about the facts right now, but quickly, just, set a time to go to bed and set a time to wake up and stick to it. That's going to be the best thing you can do for yourself in terms of getting that quality sleep. And the last point here, and this is going to kind of lead into the nutrition part of the aspect of health, is caffeine and its effect on your sleep.
I was hoping you would say this is good relation to the podcast.
Great relation to the podcast here. The caffeine and how it affects your brain is, obviously we all know caffeine gives us that boost, gives you that boost of energy and all this stuff. So it can also affect there's already a receptor in your brain that kind of kicks, what's it called? I can't remember.
The adenosine receptor.
The adenosine receptor, correct. And so, adenosine is already something that your body produces to give you that energy, in the morning. And if I'm incorrect, am I saying that correctly?
I think actually, I think adenosine comes in later in the day to make you tired.
Got you.
But caffeine mimics it, and then it doesn't work the same when caffeine binds to it. So it just changes the dynamic a little bit.
Correct. So this is more in the later part of the day with how caffeine affects that. So the adenosine coming up. The caffeine, because like you said there, it's going to disrupt that receptor, so it's going to throw that off. So usually when you're having caffeine, you want to make sure you're having it in the earlier parts of the day, and you want to avoid, having it close to the evening time. They usually say 4 o'clock, but that's to try to help you make sure that you don't get into what's that half-life that was noted. So the caffeine has that 5-hour half-life, meaning that after 5 hours, your body has only metabolized half of the caffeine. So, so meaning that it's not even cleared from your body yet until about 10 hours later. So even if you had, coffee mid-afternoon, late afternoon, you could still affect your sleep because that release of caffeine could come later on.
Right. And here's the funny thing about caffeine too, and if you're not really aware of it in that whole process, it can be really disrupting, is say you have caffeine at 3 or 4 in the afternoon because you're tired, and then it disrupts your sleep. What happens the next day? You wake up tired because you didn't sleep well, because your body didn't get into deep sleep, because that's one of the main functions of the adenosine at night, is it makes your whole body tired and it kickstarts the sleeping cycle. So if you're messing with that late at night, you're not going to sleep well, so you wake up tired the next day. What's the first thing people do?
Coffee.
They grab a coffee, or they grab 2 coffees because they're tired, and then it just goes and goes and goes. And so people need to make sure that they're aware of when and how much coffee or caffeine they're drinking, because it can be any kind of caffeine. It can be from green tea, it can be from Red Bulls, energy drinks, sodas. It can be from 5-hour energies. I think those have caffeine. all those things they're going to act the same in the brain.
For sure. And I definitely have noticed the effects of like being like off, like let's say like drinking coffee for an amount of time, and like my sleep, and the parallels to that. Like, okay, not having coffee, getting enough sleep, but still feeling like I have energy and not even wanting coffee. And really, the only times that I felt like I needed coffee were the times that my sleep was affected. And so, yeah, it's like you said, it's just a cycle. You know, we get caught in this thing like, oh, I have to have a cup of coffee in the morning. You actually don't have to have a cup of coffee in the morning. You just kind of built up that habit of thinking so. You know, you make your body feel like it needs.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think there's a line here because, you know, it's like obviously you could take the hard ass approach and be like, no, it's a drug and it's gonna screw with my sleep and like I should never have it. But then there's also the side of like we enjoy the ritual and like the taste of it and all that. So as long as you're kind of like monitoring both sides, you can easily have the best of both worlds. But if you're real with yourself and you're like, man, I've started drinking 3 cups of coffee every day and one of them's at like 2 p.m. and I'm not sleeping well and I'm tired, have a little look at that and then maybe adjust.
Yeah, no, that's totally true.